Hello dear students, welcome to this lecture. Today the topic of discussion is cross-border relationships, peaceful and violent. The main objectives for today's lecture are to comprehend the meaning of the concepts of borders and borderlands, to know the nature of violent relationships among the states across borders, to know the nature of the peaceful relationships among states across borders, to understand different viewpoints on the current peaceful processes and the violent frontiers of South Asia and world. Dear students, the terms borders and borderlands are often misunderstood by the students. To start, let's explore what borders and borderlands are in order to clarify the possible confusion. Borders refer to the geographical boundaries that separate one territory or political entity from another. These boundaries can be defined by physical features such as rivers, mountains, oceans, or they can be established through political agreements and treaties. Borders can take different forms ranging from natural features such as mountain ranges or rivers to man-made structures such as walls, fences, or checkpoints. In some cases, borders may be porous, allowing for relatively free movement of people and goods, while in other cases, they may be heavily guarded and regulated. Borderlands, on the other hand, refer to the regions and communities that exist at or near the borders between different territories or political entities. Borderlands can be places of cultural, linguistic, and ethnic diversity and may be characterized by a mixture of different social, economic, and political influences. Borderlands can also be sites of conflict and tension, particularly where there are disputes over territorial boundaries or resource allocation. At the same time, borderlands can also be places of opportunity where cross-border trade, cultural exchange, and other forms of collaborations take place. The relationship between borders and borderlands is complex and dynamic and can vary depending on a range of factors, including historical, cultural, and political context. Effective management of borders and borderlands require careful diplomacy, planning, and coordination between different countries and regions, and a willingness to acknowledge and address the complex social and economic dynamics that exist in these regions. Dear students, now we will understand cross-border relationships in international relations. In international relations, cross-border relationships refer to the interactions and connections between countries, particularly those involving trade, diplomacy, and migration also. These relationships can have significant implications for national and global security, as well as economic development and cultural exchange. Cross-border relationships in international relations are often influenced by factors such as geographical proximity, political ideology, historical ties, and economic interest. For example, neighboring countries may have closer ties due to shared borders and common history, culture, and economic interests. Similarly, countries with similar political systems or values may have closer relationships due to ideological affinity. These relationships can take various forms such as diplomatic alliances, trade agreements, and cultural exchanges. They can also involve the movement of people across borders, such as migration for work or study, refugee flows, or tourism. The dynamics of cross-border relationships in international relations are complex and can be influenced by a variety of factors. Effective management of these relationships require diplomatic skills, strategic thinking, and the ability to navigate differences in culture, language, and political systems. Dear students, we shall now take the example of India and Pakistan. The cross-border relationship between India and Pakistan has been marked by decades of tension and conflict. The two countries have a long-standing territorial dispute over the region of Kashmir, which has resulted in several wars and ongoing low-level conflict on borders, that is ceasefire violations. In addition to the Kashmir dispute and borders, India and Pakistan have been involved in other conflicts and disagreements, including issues related to terrorism, water sharing, and trade. These issues have often led to diplomatic standoffs, border skirmishes, and occasional exchange of fires. Despite these challenges, there have been some attempts at improving the cross-border relationship between the two countries. For example, in 2019, India and Pakistan took steps to ease tension by opening up a corridor allowing Indian Sikh and Hindu pilgrims to visit a holy shrine Kartarpur in Punjab province of Pakistan. There have also been some efforts to promote cultural exchange and people-to-people contacts, such as through initiatives like the India and Pakistan Joint Business Forum and the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, that is SAARC. However, progress towards improving the cross-border relationship between India and Pakistan has been slow and major challenges remain. The dispute over Kashmir continues to be a major obstacle to peace, and ongoing incidents of violence and terrorism have further strained the relationships between the two countries. Dear students, let's have a look on the relationship between India and Bangladesh. India and Bangladesh share a land border of over 4,000 kilometers and have a long history of cultural and economic ties. Both countries have made several efforts to improve cross-border trade and connectivity, with initiatives such as the India-Bangladesh Joint Rivers Commission and opening of new land and water transit routes. The two countries have worked together to address issues such as illegal migration, terrorism, and regional security. The cross-border relationships between India and Bangladesh has seen significant improvement in recent years, particularly since the establishment of current government in Bangladesh in 2009. One major breakthrough in the cross-border relationship between India and Bangladesh was the signing of the Land Boundary Agreement in 2015, which resolved the long-standing border dispute and facilitated the exchange of enclaves of citizens from both countries. This agreement was seen as a major milestone in the relationship between the two countries and has helped to reduce the tension and improve people-to-people contacts. In addition to these initiatives, there have been efforts to promote cultural exchange and people-to-people contacts between India and Bangladesh, including through programs such as Metri Express, which provides train services between the two countries. Despite these positive developments, there are still challenges in the cross-border relationships between India and Bangladesh. Issues such as water sharing, treatment of Rohingya refugees, and border security remains contentious and will require continued efforts to address. Dear students, for more in-depth understanding, we will now look at India-China cross-border relationship. The cross-border relationship between India and China has been marked by a complex history of cooperation, competition, and conflict. The two countries share a border of over 3,400 kilometers and have a long-standing territorial dispute over the region of Aksai Chin. Over the past few decades, India and China have made efforts to improve their cross-border relationship through initiatives such as Border Defense Cooperation Agreement and the Special Representative Dialogues. These efforts have aimed to address border disputes, promote trade and investment, and improve cultural and people-to-people contacts. However, tension between these two countries have escalated in recent years, particularly in the context of territorial disputes in the Himalayan region. In 2020, a deadly clash between Indian and Chinese troops in the Galwan Valley resulted in the deaths of at least 20 Indian soldiers and an unknown number of Chinese troops. The incident led to a further deterioration in the cross-border relationships between India and China, with both countries increasing their military presence along the border and engaging in diplomatic exchanges aimed at resolving the conflict. The situation remains tense and has broader implications for regional security and geopolitical dynamics. Despite these challenges, there are still opportunities for the two countries to improve their cross-border relationship. Both India and China are major powers with significant economic and strategic interests, and improving their relationships could have positive implications for regional stability and global governance. However, any progress will require continued efforts to address differences and build trust between the two countries. Dear students, now we will discuss extensively about violent borders and the most well-known violent borders in the world. Violent borders refer to the borders that are characterized by conflict, tension and violence, often resulting from disputes over territorial boundaries, resource allocation or cultural and ethnic differences. In some cases, violent borders can lead to armed conflict between neighboring countries or communities, resulting in significant loss of life and displacement of people. Border disputes can also lead to the use of military force as well as the deployment of border guards, checkpoints and other security measures that can further exacerbate tensions and create the sense of militarization along the border. Violent borders can also have significant economic and social implications. They can disrupt cross-border trade, limited access to resources, and create barriers to cultural and people-to-people exchange. The presence of violent borders can also have negative impacts on the environment, as resources such as water and land may be exploited or damaged as a result of conflict and violence. There are several borders in the world that are known for their history of violence and conflict. Here are the few examples. Israel and Palestine border. The Israel and Palestine border has been a site of ongoing conflict and violence for decades. The two sides have been engaged in the territorial dispute over the region since the mid-20th century, and the conflict has resulted in numerous wars, uprisings and terrorist attacks. India and Pakistan border. The part we already discussed, the two countries have also engaged in a territorial dispute over the region of Kashmir, which has resulted in ongoing violence and tension. India and Pakistan border has been the site of several armed conflicts, including the Indo-Pakistani Wars of 1947, 1965 and 1971. The next example is North-South Korea border. The border between North and South Korea is one of the most heavily militarized borders in the world, with both sides maintaining large standing armies and extensive fortifications. The two sides remain technically at war, as a ceasefire agreement was signed in 1953, but a formal peace treaty was never reached. The next example is Mexico-United States border. The border between Mexico and United States has seen significant violence and conflict in recent years, particularly as a result of drug trafficking and organized crimes. This has led to increased militarization and border security measures, as well as ongoing political tensions between the two countries. The next example is Ethiopia and Eritrea border. The border between Ethiopia and Eritrea has been the site of several armed conflicts, including a border war that took place between 1998 and 2000. Although a peace agreement was signed in 2018, tensions and violence continue to flare up in the region. It's important to note that violence and conflict can occur on any border, and the examples we cited are not a complete list. The resolution of violent borders require careful diplomacy, collaboration, and respect for human rights and international law. Dear students, we will now briefly go over the major challenges occurring near violent borders. First is illegal migration. Illegal migration on borders is a major issue that many countries around the world are facing. Illegal migration refers to the movement of people across international borders without proper documentation or authorization, in violation of laws of the destination country. This can happen for a variety of reasons, including economic hardships, political instability, war, and persecution. Illegal migration can pose a number of challenges and risks for both the migrant themselves and the destination country. For instance, illegal migrants may be vulnerable to exploitation, abuse, and trafficking, and may face a variety of social and economic challenges as they attempt to establish themselves in a new country. In addition, illegal migration can strain the resources of the destination country, including its economy, social services, and the law enforcement agencies. To address the issue of illegal migration on borders, many countries have implemented a range of measures, including border security and surveillance, immigration policies and procedures, and enforcement of immigration laws. Another challenge is drug trafficking. Drug trafficking on borders is a significant issue that affects many countries around the world. Drug trafficking refers to the illegal production, transportation, distribution, and sales of drugs such as cocaine, heroin, and marijuana. Border regions are often vulnerable to drug trafficking because of their proximity to production areas and the presence of criminal groups that seeks to exploit the opportunities created by weak law enforcement and governance structures. To address the issue of drug trafficking on borders, many countries have implemented a range of measures, including increased border security, enhanced intelligence and surveillance capabilities, and more robust law enforcement and legal frameworks. The next is weapon smuggling. Weapon smuggling on borders is a serious issue that poses significant security challenges for many countries around the world. Weapon smuggling refers to the illegal transportation and distribution of firearms, ammunition, and other types of weapons across borders, often with the goal of supplying criminal or terrorist groups. To address the issue of weapon smuggling on borders, many countries have implemented a range of measures, including increased border security, enhanced intelligence and surveillance capabilities, and more robust law enforcement and legal frameworks. At the same time, addressing the root causes of weapon smuggling, including political instability, corruption, and poverty, is also essential in reducing the demand for weapons and the incentives for the criminal groups to engage in the weapon smuggling. The next is human trafficking. Human trafficking on borders is a serious issue that affects many countries around the world. Human trafficking refers to the illegal transportation and exploitation of human beings, often for the purpose of forced labor, sexual exploitation, or other types of exploitations. To address the issue of human trafficking on borders, many countries have implemented a range of measures, including increased border security, enhanced intelligence and surveillance capabilities, and more robust law enforcement and legal frameworks. At the same time, addressing the root causes of human trafficking, including poverty, inequality, and political instability, is also essential in reducing the demand for human trafficking and the incentives for criminal groups to engage in this legal activity. The next is terrorism. Terrorism on borders is a serious security issue that many countries face. Terrorism refers to the use of violence or the threat of violence to intimidate or coerce individuals, governments, or societies for political, religious, or ideological purposes. To address the issue of terrorism on borders, many countries have implemented a range of measures, including increased border security, enhanced intelligence and surveillance capabilities, and more robust law enforcement and legal frameworks. At the same time, addressing the root causes of terrorism, including political instability, poverty, and inequality, is also essential in reducing the incentives for individuals and groups to engage in this type of activity. Ceasefire violation is another challenge. Ceasefire violations or cross-firings on borders refer to incidents where parties to a conflict fail to adhere to the terms of a ceasefire agreement, resulting in a resumption of hostilities and often leading to a loss of life and damage to property. Ceasefire violations or cross-firings on borders can occur for a variety of reasons, including a lack of trust between the parties, misunderstandings or miscommunications, and intentional violations by one or both sides. They can also be exacerbated by factors such as political instabilities, border disputes, and cross-border infiltration. To address the issue of ceasefire violations on borders, it is essential to establish and maintain effective communication channels between the parties to conflict, as well as to promote transparency and accountability in the implementation of ceasefire agreements. At the same time, addressing the root causes of conflict such as political grievances, economic disparities, and social inequality is also essential in reducing the incentives for the parties to engage in hostilities and to seek to violate ceasefire agreements. Dear students, let's now have a look on prominent peaceful borders of the world. Peaceful borders are those borders that are characterized by minimal tension, conflict, and violence. These borders are often marked by cooperation, collaboration, and mutual respect between neighboring countries and communities. Peaceful borders can have many benefits, including facilitating cross-border trade and economic integration, promoting cultural exchange and people-to-people contact, and supporting regional stability and security. In addition, peaceful borders can help to promote environmental conservation and sustainable development in border regions. There are many borders in the world that are relatively peaceful and cooperative. Here are some examples. Canada-United States borders. The border between Canada and United States is one of the longest in the world but is generally peaceful and cooperative. The two countries have a long history of collaboration on trade, security, and other issues, and the border is often described as friendliest border in the world. The another is Norway-Sweden border. The border between Norway and Sweden is another example of peaceful and cooperative border. The two countries have a history of collaboration on the range of issues including trade, tourism, and environmental protection. European Union borders. The borders between European Union countries are generally peaceful and cooperative, due in large part to the European Union's commitment to free movement of goods and people within its borders. While there have been some tensions in recent years over issues such as migration, still the European Union continues to prioritize cooperation and collaboration among its member states. The another is Bhutan-India border. The border between Bhutan and India is characterized by close cooperation and friendly relations between the two countries. India has played a key role in Bhutan's development and security, and the two countries work closely on the range of issues. The next is Australia-New Zealand border. The border between Australia and New Zealand is generally peaceful and cooperative. The two countries share a common history and cultural ties and have close economic and diplomatic relations. The another are Nordic countries. The borders between Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, and Sweden are characterized by close collaboration and cooperation. The countries share similar cultures, economies, and social systems and have a long history of peaceful relations. The Benelux countries. The border between the Belgium, the Netherlands, and the Luxembourg are among the most peaceful and open in the world. The countries have a long history of economic and political integration and are committed to promoting cross-border cooperation and collaboration. The Gulf Cooperation Council. The Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, is a regional organization composed of 6 countries in the Arabian Gulf, including Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. The GCC countries are committed to promoting regional stability and security and have developed a range of economic, political, and security initiatives to facilitate cross-border cooperation. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, which is known as ASEAN, is a regional organization composed of 10 countries in Southeast Asia, including Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. ASEAN is committed to promoting regional peace, stability, and prosperity and has developed a range of initiatives to support cross-border cooperation and integration. There are just a few examples of peaceful borders in the world. While borders can often be a source of tension and conflict, they can also be the sites of cooperation and collaboration between neighboring countries and communities. Overall, peaceful borders are important for promoting regional stability, economic integration, and social and cultural exchange. While conflicts and tensions may arise along borders, and peaceful and cooperative relations between neighboring countries and communities can help to minimize these issues and support a more peaceful and prosperous future. Dear students, while concluding this lecture, we can say that cross-border relationships can be challenging but also incredibly rewarding. They require open communication, mutual respect, mutual coordination, cultural sensitivity, and a willingness to work through differences and a volatile environment. However, these relationships can also offer unique opportunities for personal growth, learning, and new experiences. While the distance and logistical barriers can be difficult to overcome, modern technology has made it easier than ever to stay connected for cross-border communities and nations. Ultimately, the success of a cross-border relationship depends on the commitment, patience, and efforts of the nation involved. With dedication and perseverance, these relationships can thrive and provide a lifetime of cooperation and trust among nations and cross-cultural exchange and celebration of diversity among countries or communities. Dear students, it was all about today's lecture regarding cross-border relationships. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Thank you and good luck.